I woke up to the taste of antiseptic and the sharp sting of reality. My head throbbed like someone was hammering tiny nails into my skull. The room smelled sterile, almost aggressively clean, like it had been scrubbed with too much bleach. And then, of course, the first horrifying realization hit me. I wasn't in my apartment. I wasn't anywhere familiar. A woman stood by the window, sunlight brushing her chestnut hair in a halo. Her lab coat rustled as she moved, but it was her eyes that froze me in place. The same sharp, piercing eyes that had judged me, dismissed me, mocked me in college, now looked at me with something I couldn't name. Concern? Regret? Or was it curiosity disguised as gentleness? "You're awake," she said, her voice steady, professional but softer than I remembered. My stomach twisted. I knew that voice. I knew it all too well. "You, what happened?" I croaked, each word scraping my throat raw. My memory came back in jagged flashes. The car, the screeching brakes, glass flying like tiny shards of ice, and then darkness. "You were in an accident," she explained, moving closer. "You've been unconscious for a week." I didn't know if you were going to wake up." There was a pause, a fragile hesitation in her usually confident tone. She adjusted the blanket over my knees, her fingers brushing mine. The contact sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. And then it hit me fully like a punch to the gut. I was lying in her apartment. My apartment wasn't a possibility. I was married to her. Her, of all people. The woman who had once sneered at my ambitions, who had made me feel small and invisible, was now my wife. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but the sound that came out was a strangled, panicked whimper. "To am married to you?" She didn't flinch. She didn't blush. She only gave me a small, almost shy smile, the kind that could either melt your heart or make you want to punch her for being impossibly perfect. "Yes. You." She stopped, searching for words. "We got married while you were unconscious." My brain short-circuited. Married? To her? My mind raced, desperate for logic, for reason, for some tiny thread to hold on to. I remembered our last encounter in college. She had dismissed me at every turn, made me feel like I didn't belong. And yet here she was, looking at me like I was fragile treasure she couldn't let break. I wanted to scream, to run, to cry, but mostly I just stared, paralyzed, as the woman who had once looked down on me now held the power to heal me, care for me, and terrifyingly claim my heart. "I don't understand," I admitted, my voice shaking. "How? Why?" She hesitated, then sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch me directly but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her. "I made a mistake," she said quietly. "Back then I judged you unfairly. I was arrogant, self-absorbed, and somehow, somewhere I realized I couldn't let you go. Even after the accident, even after everything." Her gaze softened, vulnerable in a way that I had never seen before. The words were like ice melting in my chest. My anger, my resentment, my confusion, they all collided with something else, something I hadn't expected. Longing. That same longing I had buried deep inside whenever her memory surfaced. Don't know if I stopped, unable to form a coherent sentence. My body betrayed me, leaning just slightly toward her as if gravity itself was conspiring to bring us together. She smiled faintly, reaching out to tuck a stray strand of hair behind my ear. Her fingers lingered, grazing my skin with the gentlest touch. My breath caught. "We have time," she whispered. "You don't have to understand everything right now. Just let me be here with you." Her words were a bomb and a spark all at once. I had spent years imagining revenge, imagining confrontations, imagining her as a villain in my story. Now she was the only safe place I could imagine, and that terrified me more than anything. Over the next few days, the walls between us, towering and impenetrable, began to crumble. She didn't try to force explanations, didn't demand forgiveness. She just existed in the same space as me, sharing quiet moments, bringing me coffee, lingering in the kitchen while I tried to feed myself. There was a vulnerability in her that I had never seen in college, a tenderness that made my chest ache and my heart accelerate without permission. I found myself studying her, noticing details I had missed in the past. The curve of her smile when she thought I wasn't looking, the way her eyes softened when she listened, the subtle crease of concentration on her forehead when she worked. She was beautiful, yes, but now she was real, tangible, human, and incredibly, unbearably close. One evening, she sat beside me on the couch, a blanket draped over both of us. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and anticipation. "Do you remember the night of the accident?" she asked softly, her hand brushing mine. I nodded slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I remember. Everything." Her gaze dropped, and for a moment, I thought I had pushed her away with my truth. But then she leaned closer, pressing her forehead against mine. "I don't want to waste time on regrets anymore," she said. "I want to start over with you. With us." And something inside me shifted. Years of hurt and resentment didn't vanish overnight, but the ache in my chest began to soften. I let myself lean into her, into the warmth, the care, the unexpected love that had grown in the spaces where anger used to live. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to imagine a future where she wasn't my adversary, where we could be equals, partners, maybe even something more. I didn't say the words yet, not out loud, but my fingers found hers, intertwining naturally as if they had always belonged together. Her eyes lifted, catching mine in a silent question, a challenge, a promise. And in that instant, I realized that the accident hadn't just changed my life, it had rewritten it entirely. I was scared, confused, and hopelessly drawn to the woman who had once dismissed me. But I was also exhilarated, aware that the next steps we took together could either heal everything or shatter it completely. The nights blurred into days, the days into tentative routines. She cared for me with patience and quiet humor, teasing me when I tried to push her away, making me laugh even when I wanted to cry. I found myself laughing more than I had in years, my walls crumbling bit by bit under her gentle persistence. One rainy afternoon, as the city outside blurred into gray streaks of water and light, she held my hand across the kitchen table, her thumb tracing idle circles on my knuckles. "Do you trust me?" she asked, her voice both vulnerable and commanding. I swallowed hard. Trust was complicated, messy, and terrifying. But the truth was, I did. I wanted to. And more than that, I wanted her care, her closeness, her love, even if it came with a history that was painful and complicated. I think I do," I admitted, my voice shaking but steady enough to be heard. "I want to try. With you." Her smile was radiant, almost blinding, and yet somehow it was meant just for me. She leaned across the table, pressing her lips to mine in a gentle, lingering kiss that carried years of unspoken words, regrets, and hope. The first kiss wasn't perfect. It was messy, unsure, filled with hesitation, but it was real. And as we pulled back, our foreheads resting together, I realized that for the first time since the accident, I felt like I was home. Home wasn't a place. It was her. The days after that first kiss felt like waking up in a world painted in brighter colors. The sterile apartment, once cold and impersonal, was now filled with the warmth of our shared presence. I started noticing the little things, the way she hummed softly while cooking, how she left small notes for me when she had to leave early, or how her laughter filled the room like sunlight piercing through clouds. Yet, beneath the fragile joy, anxiety gnawed at me. How had we ended up here? Married? Together? My mind still circled the absurdity, the unfairness, and the lingering resentment I couldn't entirely shake. She had once been the one to look down on me, to treat me like a minor character in her perfect life. And now she was the center of mine. "I can't believe you actually made me your wife," I confessed one evening, sprawled on the couch while she sat beside me, her legs brushing mine. My words were teasing, but the undercurrent was serious. She chuckled, tilting her head as she met my gaze. "Believe it. And don't worry, I didn't kidnap you or anything," she teased, but her hand lingered over mine, fingers brushing in a deliberate, tender way. You were unconscious, yes, but I never thought I'd meet anyone like you. Ever. And when I realized you were part of my life forever, well, I didn't want to waste another second." Her honesty stunned me. Vulnerability wasn't something she had shown back in college. She had always been untouchable, commanding, unapproachable. But here she was raw, exposed, and it made my chest ache with a longing I couldn't name. I laughed nervously, trying to mask the fluttering heat rising inside me. "You have a weird way of saying that you love me," I muttered. Her smile was slow, mischievous, and full of warmth. "You know me. I like to keep things dramatic," she said. Then, without warning, she leaned in, pressing her lips gently to mine. This kiss was different from the first. It was softer, more confident, infused with emotion and a tentative claim. Every nerve in my body awakened. I felt the tension of years of misunderstandings, small humiliations, and secret crushes dissolve into something profound. We pulled back, foreheads resting together, sharing the warmth of each other's breath. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself for the way I treated you before, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I want to make it right now. Every single day. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from a strange, liberating relief. The woman who had once seemed untouchable, cold, and judgmental was now mine in ways I had never dared imagine. I wanted to forgive her, to trust her, to allow myself to fall completely. Over the following weeks, we settled into an awkward, yet comforting routine. She was meticulous, caring, and unrelentingly present. Every time she held my hand, every time she guided me to take my medication, every time she brushed a strand of hair from my face, it felt like a silent Promethean assertion that she would be there, unconditionally. And I noticed how she noticed me too. The way her gaze softened when I laughed, the subtle blush that colored her cheeks when I complimented her, the way she lingered a fraction too long when our hands touched. Each moment was an unspoken confession, a thread weaving us closer together. One rainy afternoon, as the city's gray drizzle streaked across the windowpane, she suggested we take a walk. I hesitated, my body still weak, my confidence fragile, but she insisted, wrapping a warm coat around me, holding my hand with firm encouragement. As we stepped into the wet streets, umbrellas barely protecting us from the rain, the world felt strangely suspended. People hurried past, umbrellas bouncing and tires hissing against wet asphalt, but in our small bubble it was just the two of us. She glanced at me, a playful glint in her eyes despite the rain soaking the edges of her coat. You know, she said, I never imagined marrying anyone in such dramatic circumstances. I laughed, the sound awkward but genuine. Neither did I. But here we are. She squeezed my hand, and in that simple touch, there was an intensity one hadn't expected. Our steps grew slower, the city noise fading, until we found ourselves standing beneath a small flickering street lamp. The rain pattered gently on our coats, and I felt a daring urge bubble up inside me. Do you ever think about how we got here? I asked, my voice softer than intended. All the time, she admitted. And every time I feel like fate was cruelly clever. You were so close yet so far. I treated you horribly and then life just gave me a second chance. With you. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to say something that would make her understand, to make her see how deeply this moment mattered. But words failed me. Instead, I reached up, brushing rain-soaked strands of hair from her forehead, and our lips met again. This time the kiss was electric, urgent, carrying months years of tension, regret, and hidden desire. My body leaned into hers, her warmth a shock against the cold rain, and I realized how desperately I had craved this intimacy, this closeness, this declaration that we belonged together. When we finally pulled back, breathless, she rested her forehead against mine and whispered, I've waited for this moment longer than I realized. And I understood. I had waited too. For forgiveness, for love, for something real. Something lasting. Returning home, we didn't speak much. Words felt inadequate. Instead, we clung to each other in silence, finding comfort in proximity, in the rhythm of shared breaths, in the electric tension of simply being together. That night, sleep came slowly, a reluctant companion, because the warmth of her body beside mine made it impossible to let go. Days blurred into nights, each moment layered with quiet intimacy and gentle discoveries. We cooked together, often laughing when something went wrong. We held hands while walking through the city streets, watching the mundane world transform into something magical simply because we were together. And yet, under the joy, shadows of doubt lingered. I questioned whether this sudden closeness was genuine love, or merely the result of vulnerability and circumstance. Did she truly love me? Or was it pity wrapped in tenderness? Could I truly forgive her for the past, for the casual cruelty she had once inflicted? One evening, tension finally broke. We were sitting in the living room, a storm rattling the windows, when I turned to her, eyes wide with frustration and fear. I need to know, I said, voice trembling. Do you love me? Or am I just convenient? Her expression softened, and she took my hands in hers, holding them like fragile artifacts. I love you, she said simply, firmly, without hesitation. Not because it's convenient. Not because of circumstance. I love you because you are everything I've ever wanted. Even when I didn't realize it. Even when I was too blind and arrogant to see it. Tears filled my eyes. The sincerity, the raw honesty broke through every wall I had built. I leaned forward, letting my forehead rest against hers, and whispered, I love you too. I don't care about the past anymore. I just want us to be real. From that night on, our relationship deepened. The apartment became a sanctuary of trust, laughter, and tenderness. Every morning she kissed me awake. Every night we shared secrets, dreams, and unspoken fears. Every argument ended in understanding, and every smile was a promise that the other was here to stay. Weeks later, as spring began to hint at renewal, we took a trip to a nearby lake. The sun shimmered on the water, the breeze gentle and alive. We walked hand in hand along the shore, feet brushing the cool sand, laughing at the smallest things. And in a quiet moment she stopped, turning to face me fully. I never thought we'd get here, she admitted, eyes glistening with emotion. From enemies to this. I smiled, feeling the warmth of her hand against mine. Me neither. But I wouldn't change a thing. She leaned in, capturing my lips in a kiss that was everything: passion, love, forgiveness, and hope all wrapped into one. And as we held each other by the water, I realized that the accident, the fear, the pain, all of it had led to this. To a love that was unexpected, complicated, but undeniably real. For the first time since waking up in her apartment, I felt truly safe. Not just in her arms, but in the life we were building together. The past was no longer a chain, but a bridge, messy, imperfect, but leading us towards something beautiful. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the lake, I knew one thing for certain. We had survived the storms, both literal and emotional, and had emerged stronger, closer, and irreversibly in love. Spring unfolded in a way that made every ordinary day feel extraordinary. Our apartment, once just a space for survival and recovery, had transformed into a home full of laughter, small rituals, and stolen glances that spoke louder than words. Each morning I would wake to her soft humming, the sunlight catching her hair in golden strands, and I would remember still in disbelief that she was mine, wholly and completely. We had settled into a rhythm that was both tender and exhilarating. Mornings were for coffee and lingering touches, afternoons for walks in the city or quiet hours reading side by side, and evenings for long conversations that sometimes spilled into whispered confessions beneath the blanket's warmth. Every interaction revealed another layer of her, of me, and of the fragile yet unshakable bond that had emerged from chaos. One afternoon, while she was examining a patient's chart at her desk, I found myself watching her quietly from the couch. The curve of her shoulder, the determined set of her jaw, the way her fingers danced over the papers with meticulous precision, it was mesmerizing. I had loved her in college, in secret and in frustration, but now seeing her like this, fully herself, fully alive, the love I felt was no longer tinged with longing or resentment. It was deep, unwavering, and fiercely protective. She looked up and caught me staring. Her brow lifted in mock annoyance, but the corners of her lips betrayed her amusement. Planning to write a novel about me? She teased. I laughed, the sound rich and unguarded. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just memorizing every detail before I forget what this feels like. She stood and crossed the room, dropping a gentle kiss on my forehead before settling beside me. Her warmth pressed against mine, and the world outside seemed to vanish. You'll never forget, she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Because it's real. And it's ours. Her words, though simple, carried a gravity that left me speechless. Real. Ours. Two words that encapsulated everything we had endured, everything we had overcome, and everything we were yet to experience. Over the next weeks, we ventured further into our life together, facing the practicalities of married life with humor, patience, and shared determination. Grocery shopping became a playful battleground for who could find the freshest vegetables. Cooking was a symphony of laughter and occasional smoke alarms, and even mundane chores like laundry or tidying the apartment became opportunities to touch, tease, and revel in each other's presence. One evening, as twilight settled over the city, we sat on the balcony wrapped in a shared blanket, sipping wine and listening to the distant hum of traffic. The city lights flickered like fireflies, and for a moment, I felt as though the world had condensed into this small, perfect bubble where only the two of us existed. She turned to me, her gaze serious now, cutting through the playful haze. "Do you ever think about what life would have been like if the accident hadn't happened?" she asked, voice soft, almost hesitant. I thought about it and shook my head. "I'd probably still hate you," I admitted with a grin, though my chest tightened with the weight of honesty. "And you'd probably still look down on me," and she cut me off with a laugh, leaning in to kiss my temple. "I'd like to think I'd have realized sooner that I was a fool," she said. "But honestly, I'm glad it happened this way. Otherwise we might never have found this. Us." Her words made my heart swell, a mixture of gratitude and awe at the strange, twisted fate that had led us here. I leaned against her, resting my head on her shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. It was a grounding sensation, a reminder that love wasn't just about passion or romance, it was about presence, care, and mutual understanding. Our weekends became adventures. We explored nearby towns, picnicked in sun-drenched parks, and sometimes just wandered aimlessly through the city streets, holding hands and sharing fleeting kisses. Every outing was a reminder that we were building a life that was both ordinary and extraordinary, mundane yet profound, tethered to reality but imbued with magic. It wasn't always perfect. Old wounds occasionally resurfaced, small arguments sparked by misunderstandings, and I sometimes found myself flinching at familiar gestures from her past arrogance. But each time we confronted the issues with honesty, patience, and an unspoken commitment to never let pride or fear dictate our connection. Our love had been forged in Chowsit was resilient, adaptable, and real. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at the hospital, she returned home to find me waiting with a simple dinner I had cooked, a rare but deliberate act to show her how much I cared. She collapsed into the chair opposite me, exhausted and frustrated, muttering complaints about her long shifts and demanding patience. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine, letting her vent while I listened. When she finally fell silent, I smiled gently. "You're amazing," I said simply. Her eyes softened, glistening with fatigue and affection. "You really think so?" she whispered. "I know so," I replied, squeezing her hand. "And I love you for it. Even the parts that are impossible to love sometimes." Her laughter was quiet, almost a sigh, but it carried relief and joy. "I love you too," she said. And in that moment, the apartment, the world, and every past mistake faded into insignificance. There was only us, connected and unbreakable. As spring deepened into early summer, we took a weekend trip to the coast. The ocean stretched endlessly before us, waves crashing with a hypnotic rhythm that mirrored our racing hearts. We walked along the shore, toes sinking into the wet sand, laughing as the cold water splashed against our ankles. At a secluded cove, she paused, turning to face me. "Do you ever wonder if we're too lucky?" she asked, voice tinged with awe. "That after everything, after all the mistakes and misunderstandings, we actually found each other." I reached for her hand, holding it tightly as if afraid to let go. "I don't think it's luck," I said. "I think it's fate, or maybe just stubbornness. But whatever it is, it brought us here. And I'm not letting it go." Her smile was radiant, a mixture of relief, love, and playfulness. "Good," she said. Then, without warning, she pulled me close and kissed me, the wind whipping our hair, the sun glinting off the water, and the world falling away. We spent hours that afternoon tangled together on the sand, talking, laughing, and discovering new dimensions of our intimacy. It was messy, it was chaotic, and it was perfect. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word was a testament to the journey we had endured and the love we had fought to embrace. Returning home, our relationship only deepened. The apartment became a haven of trust, where vulnerability was met with care, and laughter was a constant soundtrack. We celebrated milestones, shared fears, and comforted each other through moments of doubt and insecurity. Our love was no longer tentative, it was steadfast, enduring, and profoundly human. Months later, as summer waned, she surprised me with a quiet dinner at home. Candles flickered on the table, soft music filled the apartment, and the atmosphere was intimate and sacred. She reached across the table, taking my hand, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "I want you to know," she said, voice trembling slightly, "that every moment with you has changed me. You've made me better, kinder, and braver." And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were tears of joy, relief, and profound love. I feel the same, I whispered. You've saved me in ways I didn't even know I needed. And I want to spend every day showing you how much I love you. She smiled, a soft, radiant expression that made my heart ache with longing and gratitude. Then she stood, walking around the table to kneel before me, producing a small velvet box. My breath caught in my throat as she opened it to reveal a delicate ring, its simplicity and elegance reflecting the sincerity of her heart. "Marry me," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Not because of accidents or circumstances, but because we choose each other. Every day for the rest of our lives." I couldn't speak, tears streaming freely now, my chest tight with overwhelming emotion. I nodded, unable to find words, and she slid the ring onto my finger. In that moment, all the pain, all the mistakes, all the fears we had endured melted away, leaving only love, trust, and the certainty that we were meant to be together. We embraced, holding each other close as the city outside faded into insignificance. The apartment was filled with the quiet music of our hearts beating in unison, the softest whispers of joy, and the promise of a shared future. In the months and years that followed, our love grew deeper, richer, and more resilient. We faced challenges together, career pressures, family expectations, the ordinary trials of life, but we faced them as partners, equals, and confidants. The past no longer held power over us. It had been transformed into a foundation, a testament to the strength and endurance of our connection. We celebrated anniversaries with quiet dinners and spontaneous adventures. We held hands in the city streets, laughed until our sides hurt, and shared stolen kisses in empty rooms. Every day was a reminder that love, even when forged in chaos, could flourish into something extraordinary, sacred, and enduring. And on quiet nights when the world outside seemed distant and irrelevant, we would sit together, wrapped in blankets, holding hands and whispering dreams for the future. Dreams of travel, of family, of laughter and music filling our home. Dreams of growing old together, still holding each other close, still finding wonder in the simplest moments. I often thought back to the accident, the terrifying moment that had changed everything. And I realized that it had been the catalyst, the improbable event that had forced us to confront our past, our fears, and our hearts. Without it, we might never have discovered the depth of love, trust, and connection that now defined us. In the end, we had found each other not by chance, not by circumstance, but by enduring the storms, embracing vulnerability, and daring to love fully. Our story, once filled with pain, misunderstanding, and resentment, had blossomed into a tale of redemption, intimacy, and unwavering devotion. And as we lay together, the city lights flickering outside our window, I knew that this was only the beginning. We had faced the darkness, endured the trials, and emerged into a light that was brighter, warmer, and infinitely more beautiful than I had ever imagined. With her hand in mine, her heartbeat a steady rhythm against my chest, I whispered into the quiet night, "I love you." And she whispered back, her voice full of certainty, "I love you too. Always." In that moment, everything else faded. The past, the pain, the accidents, the misunderstandings, they were all behind us. What remained was love, pure and unshakable, a love that had been tested by fate and emerged victorious. And together we stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next, side by side, hearts entwined forever. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.